it meant a lot to me, and when we lost, it was difficult.
We definitely didn't play to our maximum potential on any of the days, really. Like, we were doing stuff that was kind of an uncharacteristic from us when we were practicing. What it came down to at the end of the day was that they were just the better team.
And it seems like this should be the end. Flash not connecting, the 0 point does. The lob board on the cage, the fragment down. Mind Freak, he dodges that, but Tenz will be the finisher. 13-6, Sentinels fly to South Korea, and they claim their first trophy.
They did it again. The words Sentinels and Valorant at this point are essentially synonymous. They have been undoubtedly the most popular team in Valorant over the course of the last 3 years, even though it's been a pretty long time since they were really considered a top team. Last year's VCT season was disappointing to say the least, but with a retooled roster, a role swap here and there, and some new and fresh ideas, should the rest of the pack actually be scared about Sentinels now?
Possibly going to try and retake, almost denied the plan. Here it comes. Yeah, dash through onto the side. There's Penny. Oh, in a play, but what a round!
Hey guys, it's 9, and today we're doing the very first installment of VCT Team Preview, an 11-part series where we go over every team that's going to be competing in the upcoming VCT Americas League. We're gonna cover the team's performance the previous year, the moves made in their offseason, whether their new roster is an upgrade or downgrade, and my expected placement for that team in the upcoming 2024 season. As for today, I don't think there's any better team to start with than Sentinels. Let's first start with taking a look back at their 2023 season. In 2023, Sentinels entered VCT with a completely overhauled roster. They dropped 4 of their 5 previous players with only Tenz remaining as the sole player of the original core. They added players Zekken, Sassy, Pankata, and Def. And while they started the season with a close win over 100 Thieves, things quickly went downhill from there. They started losing. A lot. Seeing these losses start to rack up, management started making radical changes to the roster, like the removal of the team's IGL Def and their coach Psycho only 2 weeks into the season, and we would continue to see this trend throughout the year as Sentinels move forward. Regular roster changes plagued their season, with players Tenz and Marv being rotated in and out. Saucy, who we thought would be their initiator main, considering he won a world championship on it, oftentimes was being forced to play roles he felt uncomfortable on, like Viper and Omen. These inconsistencies in roles, players, and coaches eventually led to Sentinels finishing the season with a 4-5 record, leaving them just 1 win shy of making it into the playoffs, a devastating finish for the team. They failed to qualify for any international tournaments in the VCT year. But coming into the offseason, with a disappointing year behind them, Sentinels would make sure to make the right moves in order to have a more successful year in the new season. They decided to make 2 crucial changes to the team. They would be bringing in IGL John Cutie from M80 to lead their squad and flex player Zelsis to be their 6th man. Their complete roster for 2024 is looking to be Zekken, Tenz, Sassy, John Cutie, Pankata, and Zelsis as sub. On paper, these are looking to be solid changes. After the departure of Def early into the season last year, the team utilized Smoke's player Marv as their primary IGL, and while he is a great player, he's never had to IGL at a tier 1 level, and it was clear Sentinels would need a primary IGL coming into the new year. In comes John Cutie. John Cutie had a great season playing for M80 in the North American Challenger circuit. His team went as far as any team possibly could, all the way to the Ascension Grand Final. The team would unfortunately lose to the Guard, who then went on to sign to G2 for the upcoming season. The argument could easily be made for John Cutie being a top 2, if not number 1 IGL in Challengers North America, so signing him onto the team seemed like a no-brainer for Sentinels. As for Zelsis, with the departure of Marv at the end of the year, Sentinels would need a new 6th man or substitute player. Zelsis is arguably the best person they could have gotten for this position. He had a very solid year on Cloud9, who finished 2nd in VCT America's standings. He is incredibly flexible with his agent pool, often playing Phoenix, Viper, Killjoy, or whatever else his team needs. These changes, alongside Zekken becoming primary duelist and Tenz moving to a flex role, made a lot of sense for Sentinels. The thing is, we don't often get to see how the changes pan out until the start of the new season, but luckily for us, we just had easily the most active offseason we've ever seen, with many tournaments across the globe. Sentinels actively competed in many of these and did really well in all of them, most notably of course securing the trophy at the Africa TV tournament in Korea with a dominating 3-0 win over Paper Rex in the grand finals. This tournament was filled with many tier 1 teams and would be a great gauge for where they are as a team. Safe to say, they passed with flying colors. They proved that they are one of the strongest teams on Sunset right now, the newest map in the game. This will undoubtedly be an advantage early on in the season when other teams are still trying to figure that map out. Beyond Sunset, this offseason showed many bright spots for the team. John Cutie already looks to be taking great control of the team as the new IGL. He seems to be bringing in a lot of nice, fresh ideas for the team, and they look completely different. His calls in these offseason tournaments have looked great, all while remaining solid in stats for himself. Zekken still looks like an absolute beast on Jet and Raze, and if he can maintain it, he is for sure going to be one of the scariest duelist players in the Americas League. But most importantly, we see Tenz is slipping more and more into a comfortable position in that flex role. He's been playing a lot of Omen with a couple games on KO and Breach. At first, I heavily doubted him on the Omen, especially considering that they have a world champion smokes player in Pankata sitting right on their bench. But he's definitely proven me and many others wrong with a couple stellar performances on the smokes. While Tenz has played duelist his entire career, it was pretty obvious that it was probably best that he made a switch off of that role. His style of duelist play was becoming a detriment to the team, and if you want to go into detail, Caster Sideshow made an excellent video on his channel breaking down the nitty-gritty of Tenz's gameplay. And mentioning Pankata, his usage, or rather non-usage on the team, began to worry me this offseason. Sentinels were heavily opting to give Zelsis more playtime than Pankata in these offseason tournaments. This seemed very questionable since Zelsis was supposed to be their 6th man and not a starter, and especially more questionable when seeing they would also rather have Tenz play Omen over him. But seeing how they played, I think it's pretty crucial they keep Zelsis in their rotation. He is not only putting up great performances individually against strong teams, but also showing great influence in their team comms. He's always been a very vocal player, and this seems to be really helping out Sentinels as of late, especially when looking at a player like Pankata, who he is being compared to, a player who's been known to be more quiet and to himself, especially on Sentinels where he has to communicate in a language he isn't very familiar with. Pair this with some great performances from Tenz on the Omen. Yeah, I think I can now understand why Sentinels are opting to keep him on their bench, which still just seems a bit wild considering the pedigree of player which we know him to be. Now, before we get into my predictions for Sentinels in 2024, I have to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's video, SkinClub. Now looking forward to this season, where am I expecting a team like Sentinels to place? I seriously do rate these offseason moves they have made, and they've already come to fruition in these offseason tournaments. That being said, I've also learned that you can't put the most stock into offseason tournaments, cough cough 100 Thieves. But looking at what they have now, a solid IGL, Tenz moving off the duelist role for Zekken to shine while still contributing himself, the team looking way more cohesive and vocal, yeah, I'm thinking this team is going to do solid this year. The team is just playing much better overall as compared to last year with better aggression and coordination in key moments. I'm expecting a top 4 placing for this team with them fighting for a spot at international tournaments. Qualifying for Masters Madrid though will still be very tough, as only the top 2 teams from the region will make it, and considering there are still teams out there like Loud, Leviathan, and G2 in the Americas League, Sentinels are still going to have to work very hard for it.
So surely you have high expectations for yourself for the next season, right?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't know.
Yeah.
Now in the presence of a